Welcome back to HOA Karen Gets Denied. I thought the case was closed until they came for me. Karen held a vendor change order and yelled that overruns were none of my concern. "You are making this worse for yourself," she said, jabbing the clipboard toward my chest. I stood on my front step in the bright midday light, visor low, and I did not move. The pen in my hand was gripped so tight my knuckles went white. Behind her, a tow truck idled at the curb. The driver leaned against the door with his arms crossed, waiting for her signal. I work as an insurance fraud investigator. I recognize patterns fast. This situation did not add up. Christine Jackson, pool and amenities chair for Meadowbrook Landing Association, had just told me I owed $300 for landscape overruns I never approved. The invoice was dated 2 weeks ago. I never got a notice. She said the vendor changed suppliers mid-job and I was on the hook. I said I wanted to see the original contract. She said the portal was down and I had to deliver paper proof in person today, or she would lock my amenities access and escalate to a lien. Her voice had that fake authority edge, like she was reading from a script. "I am trying to refinance. Any lien threat could wreck the deal." She knew that. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that. Christine tapped the little radio earpiece clipped to her collar and glanced at the tow driver. "We can tow first and explain later. That is how enforcement works," she said. The driver shifted his weight. I saw him look at the clipboard, then back at me. He did not look convinced. I asked her to show me the section of the covenant that allowed vendor change order billing without homeowner approval. She flipped a page on her clipboard and rattled off a section number. I pulled my phone out and opened the covenant PDF I had saved 2 months ago. The section she quoted was about landscaping standards, not billing authority. I turned the screen toward her. She did not even look. She said the printed copy was the binding version and I could request a hearing if I disagreed, but the fine stood and the amenities lockout would start tomorrow. She spun on her heel and walked back to the tow truck. The driver gave me a look that said he had seen this before, then climbed into the cab. The truck pulled away. I went inside and sat at my kitchen table. My ally is a practical property manager friend named Luis who knows HOA procedure and records requests. I texted him the section number Christine quoted and a photo of the invoice. He called me back 10 minutes later. "That section does not say what she claims," he said. "And this invoice template looks identical to one I saw 2 years ago in a complaint packet from another homeowner." He said a neighbor named Ed had filed a dispute over a similar overrun charge, but the case disappeared from the portal and Ed moved out 6 months later. Luis said he had a box of old records in his garage from when he worked for a different management company that serviced Meadowbrook Landing. He said he would look for anything with Ed's name on it. I decided to reopen the cold case. If Christine was running the same scam twice, there would be a pattern. I drove to Luis's place that evening. He handed me a cardboard file box. Inside were printed minutes, violation notices, and a stack of printed photos clipped together. The photos showed overgrown landscaping, trash cans left out, and a car parked on the street. Each photo had a handwritten date on the back. The dates were all from the same week 2 years ago. The handwriting matched the signatures on the notices. Christine's name was on every single one. Luis pointed to a complaint letter Ed had written. It was addressed to the board and dated 3 weeks after the photos. Ed claimed he had never been notified about the violations, and when he showed up to a hearing, Christine told him the photos were taken over a 6-month period, not 1 week. Ed said he checked his own doorbell camera and found no one had delivered a notice. He said Christine told him the notices were emailed, but he never got an email. The board voted to uphold the fine. Ed paid $250 and moved out 6 months later. Luis said the invoice template in my hand was the same one Ed had received. Same vendor name, same line items, same mystery overrun charge. I asked Luis if he still had contact info for Ed. He shook his head. Ed deleted his social media and went dark. But Luis said there was another homeowner, a woman named Rachel, who had posted in the neighborhood group chat 2 years ago about a similar case. Christine had removed the post within an hour and replaced it with a correction that said Rachel had misunderstood the policy. Louise said Rachel still lived in the neighborhood, but she was terrified of retaliation and refused to be seen on camera at first. I needed more than 2 cases. I needed a pattern wide enough that the board could not ignore it. I requested a records packet from the management company the next morning. The portal was still down, so I had to go in person. The office was a squat brick building off Route 1A, 20 minutes from the neighborhood. I walked in, and the receptionist, a tired woman in her 50s, looked up from her desk. I said I needed copies of all violation notices and invoices issued to my address for the last 3 years. She said that would take a week. I said the portal was down, and I needed it today because I had a deadline. She sighed and went to the back. She came back 15 minutes later with a thin folder. Inside were 2 notices. One was the overrun invoice Christine had shown me. The other was a landscaping violation from 6 months ago that I had never seen before. The notice was dated on a Thursday. I checked my own records. I was out of town that Thursday for a work trip. No one could have delivered it in person. I asked the receptionist if the notice was emailed. She pulled up the account on her screen and shook her head. No email was sent. I asked if there was a delivery log. She said the system did not track that for notices under $50. This notice was for $75. I asked why it was in my file if I never received it and never paid it. She looked at the screen again. Someone marked it resolved, she said. I asked who. She said the field was blank. I took photos of both notices and left. On the way out, I saw Christine's car in the parking lot. A white sedan with a Meadowbrook Landing Association sticker on the bumper. I sat in my truck and waited. 10 minutes later, Christine walked out of the building with a property manager I had never seen before. They stood by the sedan and talked. Christine was holding a manila envelope. The property manager looked uncomfortable. She kept glancing at the building. Christine handed her the envelope and got in her car. The property manager went back inside. I followed Christine. She drove straight to the neighborhood clubhouse. I parked 2 rows away and watched her go inside. She came out 5 minutes later with a file cart. The cart had 3 stacked plastic bins. She loaded them into her trunk and drove away. I did not follow her home. I went to the clubhouse instead. The door was unlocked. Inside, the front desk was empty. A hallway led to a small office with a copy machine and a row of metal filing cabinets. One cabinet was open. The drawer was labeled Violations 2022-2023. I pulled the drawer all the way out. It was half empty. I heard footsteps in the hall. I turned and saw the property manager from the parking lot. She stopped in the doorway. Her face went pale. I said I was just picking up a copy of my violation history. She said the office was closed and I needed to leave. I said the door was unlocked. She said Christine had the key and must have forgotten to lock it. I asked if Christine was allowed to take files home. The property manager did not answer. She walked to the cabinet and closed the drawer. She told me to leave again. I left. That night, I called Luis and told him what I saw. He said Christine had been doing this for at least 2 years. Every time someone challenged a fine, she pulled the file and the case disappeared. The board never saw the disputes because Christine controlled the records. Luis said the only way to stop her was to get the board to order a management audit that exposes the pattern. But the board trusted Christine. She had been on the board for 6 years. She ran the pool and amenities like a bouncer. If you crossed her, you lost pool access, parking access, and your name went on a watch list. I needed leverage. I went back to the photos Luis had given me. I spread them on my table and matched them to the dates on the notices. Every notice Christine issued to Ed had a photo attached. The photos were identical in style. Same angle, same lighting, same lens distortion. They looked like they were taken with the same camera on the same day. I checked the metadata on the digital copies Luis had saved. The creation date was 1 day before the notice date. That meant Christine took all the photos in advance, then issued the notices over 6 months and claimed they were taken on different days. I had a police incident number from a prior HOA trespass attempt that shows a pattern. 2 years ago, a homeowner named Greg called the police after Christine entered his backyard without permission to photograph a dead tree. The deputy who responded wrote a report. Greg filed a trespass complaint, but Christine told the board Greg had threatened her and the board sided with her. Greg dropped the complaint and sold his house 4 months later. Luis said he knew the deputy who responded. His name was Tom. He worked in Bangor and had been on the force for 15 years. Luis said Tom remembered the call because Christine had tried to get him to arrest Greg on the spot, and Tom refused. I called the police department and asked for a copy of the report. The clerk said I could request it in person at the records window. I went the next morning. The clerk pulled the file and handed me 3 pages. The report said Christine claimed she was conducting a compliance inspection, and Greg came out of his house yelling and waving a rake. Tom noted that Christine had no ID badge, no clipboard, and no authorization letter from the management company. Tom also noted that Greg showed him doorbell camera footage proving Christine had climbed the fence to enter the yard. Tom advised Christine that entering private property without permission was trespass, and she could be charged if Greg filed a complaint. Christine told Tom that HOA officers had inspection authority under state law. Tom told her that was not true and advised her to leave. The report ended with a note that Greg declined to press charges but wanted the incident documented. I now had 3 cases: Ed's fake violations, the trespass incident with Greg, and my own overrun charge. All 3 involved Christine. All 3 involved missing or altered records. I needed to connect them to the missing HOA money. I went back to the management company and requested copies of the HOA financial ledgers for the last 3 years. The receptionist said that required board approval. I said I was a homeowner and I had a right to inspect the financials under state law. She made a call. 10 minutes later, the same property manager from the parking lot came out. She said the ledgers were available for inspection at the clubhouse during office hours, but I could not take copies without a formal request in writing. I said I would file the request today. She said the board would review it at the next meeting, which was 3 weeks away. I did not have 3 weeks. The refinance was moving forward, and I needed to clear any lien threats before the underwriter pulled my HOA certificate. Christine knew that. She was counting on the timeline to force me to pay. I texted Luis and asked if he could get into the clubhouse office after hours. He said no, but he knew someone who could. A woman named Sandra who worked as the clubhouse event coordinator. Sandra had keys to every room. Luis said Sandra hated Christine because Christine had tried to get her fired last year over a scheduling conflict. Sandra agreed to let me into the office after hours if I promised not to tell anyone. Sandra met me at the clubhouse at 9 p.m. She unlocked the office and turned on the desk lamp. She said I had 30 minutes. I went straight to the filing cabinet and pulled the financial ledger for 2023. The ledger was a thick binder with monthly balance sheets stapled inside. I flipped to the section labeled Pool and Amenities Operating Fund. The fund started the year with $12,000. By December, the balance was $4,000. $8,000 had been spent. I checked the line items. Half the expenses were vendor invoices. The vendor name matched the one on my overrun charge. I took photos of every page. I checked the 2022 ledger. Same vendor, same pattern. The fund lost $6,000 that year. I checked 2021. Another $5,000 gone. Over 3 years, Christine had funneled $19,000 to a vendor that did not exist. I cross-referenced the vendor name with the state business registry on my phone. No match. The vendor was fake. I now had the pattern. Christine was using fake violations to cover missing HOA money, and the ledger proves it. She issued overrun charges to random homeowners, collected the fines, and deposited them into the amenities fund to replace the money she had stolen. When someone challenged the charge, she pulled the file and the dispute disappeared. If they pushed harder, she escalated to a lien threat or an amenities lockout. Most people paid to make it go away. I needed to force a yes or no vote after the evidence is read into the minutes. But I could not wait 3 weeks for the next board meeting. I needed an emergency hearing. Under the HOA bylaws, any homeowner could request an emergency hearing if they had proof of financial mismanagement. The request had to be submitted in writing with supporting documents. The board had to schedule the hearing within 7 days. I spent the rest of the night at Sandra's dining table writing a 3-page request. I attached photos of the ledger, the fake vendor invoices, the trespass police report, and the metadata from Ed's violation photos. I printed 5 copies and put them in a folder. The next morning, I hand-delivered the request to the management company. The receptionist time-stamped it and said she would forward it to the board president. I asked who the president was. She said Christine Jackson. My stomach dropped. Christine was not just the amenities chair. She was the board president. That meant she controlled the agenda, the records, and the meeting schedule. If she wanted to bury my request, she could. I called Luis. He said I needed to go over her head. The management company had a regional manager who oversaw multiple HOA accounts. If I could get the regional manager to see the evidence, she could force the board to act. Luis gave me her name. Sharon. He said Sharon was strict about procedure and hated fraud. I called the management company and asked for Sharon. The receptionist said Sharon was in meetings all day. I said it was urgent and involved financial mismanagement. She put me on hold. 5 minutes later, Sharon picked up. I told Sharon everything. The fake vendor, the missing 19,000, the deleted disputes, the trespass incident, and Christine's pattern of threats. Sharon listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said she needed to see the documents. I said I had them in my truck. She told me to come to the office immediately. I was there in 15 minutes. Sharon was a tall woman in her 40s with short gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She took the folder and spread the documents on her desk. She went through every page. When she got to the ledger photos, she stopped. She pulled out her phone and made a call. She said she needed the Meadowbrook Landing financials sent to her email immediately. She hung up and looked at me. If this is accurate, Christine is done, she said. But I need to verify it with the bank statements. She said the board would be notified within 24 hours and an emergency meeting would be scheduled. I left the office feeling like I had just dropped a bomb. I drove home and waited. At 6 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from the neighborhood group chat. Christine had posted a message. It said the board had received a baseless complaint from a disgruntled homeowner and the matter was being reviewed. She said the homeowner was attempting to avoid legitimate fees by spreading misinformation. She said the board would address it at the next scheduled meeting in 3 weeks. She did not mention my name, but everyone knew it was me. The group chat exploded. People started asking questions. Who was the homeowner? What were the fees? Why was the complaint baseless? Christine did not respond. 10 minutes later, Rachel, the woman Luis had mentioned, posted a comment. She said she had filed a similar complaint 2 years ago and Christine had deleted it. Rachel said she had proof that Christine had altered records. Before Rachel could post the proof, Christine removed Rachel's comment and replaced it with a correction that said Rachel had misunderstood the policy and the matter had been resolved. Rachel posted again. This time, she uploaded a screenshot of the original complaint and a copy of the deletion log showing Christine's username. The group chat went silent. Luis texted me. Rachel just nuked Christine in front of 300 people. This is about to blow up. I opened the group chat again. Rachel had posted a third message. She said she had been scared to speak up for 2 years because Christine had threatened to lock her amenities access and file a lien. She said she had copies of emails where Christine admitted to backdating notices. Rachel tagged me in the post and said we should file a joint complaint. I replied and said I already did. I posted a screenshot of the emergency hearing request with Sharon's timestamp. The chat erupted. Christine tried to delete Rachel's posts again, but Sandra, the clubhouse coordinator, had admin access to the group chat. Sandra restored the posts and removed Christine's admin privileges. Christine sent a private message to Sandra demanding the privileges back. Sandra posted the message in the group chat. Christine's message said Sandra was insubordinate and would be terminated. Sandra replied publicly that Christine did not have authority to fire her. The management company controlled staffing. The group chat was on fire. People were posting old screenshots of Christine's threats, deleted notices, and unexplained charges. Someone posted a photo of Christine loading the file cart into her trunk. Another person posted a doorbell camera video of Christine walking through their yard without permission. The evidence kept piling up. At 8 p.m., Sharon sent an email to the entire HOA. The email said the board had been placed under investigation for financial mismanagement. The email said an emergency meeting would be held in 72 hours at the county courthouse annex. The email said all homeowners were invited to attend. The email said Christine Jackson had been temporarily suspended from all board duties pending the outcome of the investigation. The email included a hotline number for homeowners who had evidence of misconduct. I called the hotline and left a voicemail with my contact info. Within an hour, I got a call from an attorney named Paul, who worked for the management company's legal team. Paul said Sharon had forwarded my documents and they matched the bank statements. Paul said Christine had issued over 40 fake invoices in 3 years and collected more than $25,000. The money had gone into the amenities fund, but Christine had also written checks to herself for pool maintenance reimbursements that were never approved by the board. Paul said the total theft was closer to $30,000. He said the management company was filing a criminal complaint with the Bangor Police Department and the case would be referred to the district attorney. Paul asked if I was willing to testify. I said yes. He said I might also be called as a witness if Christine tried to sue for defamation. I said I had recordings of every conversation and copies of every document. Paul said that was good. He also said the HOA bylaws required the board to publish standards and timelines to all homeowners after a finding of misconduct. He said the new board would have to implement transparency rules in regular audits. He said I should expect a full refund of any disputed charges within 30 days. I hung up and sat in my kitchen. My hands were shaking. I had spent 2 weeks digging through records, chasing witnesses, and putting together a case that could have fallen apart at any moment. Now it was real. Christine was suspended. The police were involved. The board was under investigation. The neighborhood knew everything. The next morning, Christine showed up at my house. I was in the garage when I heard her voice. "You are going to regret this," she yelled from the driveway. I walked out and saw her standing by my mailbox with her phone in one hand and a key ring with too many keys in the other. She jingled the keys like it was authority. I did not say anything. I just pulled out my phone and started recording. She stepped closer. "I will make an example out of you so everyone learns," she said. That was her line. She had said it before. Twice. Once in the group chat, and once during a pool access dispute with another homeowner last summer. It was her catchphrase. She loved the power it gave her. I kept the phone steady. Christine noticed, and her face changed. She lowered her voice. "You do not know what you are doing," she said. "This is not over." I said the police report was public record, and the ledger was in Sharon's hands. I said she could threaten me all she wanted, but it would not change the evidence. She stepped back. "You think you won," she said. "You have no idea how this works. The board will vote me back in and you will be the one paying fines." I said the board had been notified and she was suspended. She shook her head. "That is temporary. I have been on this board for 6 years. They trust me. You are nobody." I nodded like I was losing, because I wanted her to get comfortable. That was the trump card tease. I had proof she did not know about. The police report from Greg's trespass complaint. The metadata from Ed's photos. The bank statements showing the fake vendor checks. She thought I only had the ledger. She did not know I had spent 2 weeks building a timeline that connected every case. I let her think she still had a chance. Christine got in her car and drove away. I sent the recording to Paul. He replied 30 seconds later. "Do not engage with her again. If she shows up, call the police." I said I would. Then I texted Rachel and asked if she was still willing to testify. She said yes. She also said 2 other homeowners had called her after seeing the group chat posts. Both had been hit with fake overrun charges in the last year. Both had paid to avoid a lien. Rachel said she was putting together a witness list for the hearing. The 72 hours passed fast. The morning of the hearing, I woke up at 6 and printed a second copy of every document. I put them in a tabbed binder. One tab for the ledger, one for the police report, one for the fake vendor invoices, one for the metadata analysis, one for Rachel's emails. I loaded the binder into my truck and drove to the courthouse annex. The annex was a low brick building behind the county courthouse. The hearing room was on the first floor. I arrived 30 minutes early. The room was already filling up. Homeowners I recognized from the neighborhood. A few I did not. Paul was at the front table with Sharon and another attorney. Christine sat alone at the opposite table. She was wearing the same white blazer. The bucket hat was gone. Her red hair was pulled back tight. She looked calm. Too calm. I sat in the second row. Louise sat next to me. Rachel sat on my other side. At exactly 9 a.m., the hearing officer walked in. He was a retired judge named Harold who worked as a mediator for HOA disputes. Harold sat at the head table and opened a folder. He said the hearing was convened to address allegations of financial mismanagement and procedural violations by the Meadowbrook Landing Association Board. He said the management company had submitted evidence and the board president had the right to respond. He said the hearing was open to all homeowners and testimony would be recorded. Harold called Sharon to testify first. Sharon stood and walked to the front. She laid out the bank statements, the fake vendor checks, and the ledger discrepancies. She said the amenities fund had been depleted by $30,000 over 3 years. She said Christine had issued at least 40 fake invoices and collected fines from homeowners to cover the missing money. She said Christine had also written unauthorized reimbursement checks to herself, totaling $8,000. Sharon said the management company had verified all transactions with the bank and confirmed that no legitimate vendor existed under the name on the invoices. Harold asked Christine if she had a response. Christine stood. She said the vendor was real and the invoices were legitimate. She said the vendor had changed names last year and the records had not been updated. She said the reimbursement checks were for pool supplies she had purchased with her own money. She said the homeowners who filed complaints were attempting to avoid paying legitimate fees. Harold asked for proof. Christine said she did not have the receipts with her, but she could provide them later. Harold said later was not acceptable. He said the hearing required all evidence to be submitted in advance. Christine sat down. Harold called me next. I stood and walked to the front with my binder. I opened to the first tab and explained the ledger pattern. I showed the identical invoice templates across 3 years. I showed the metadata from Ed's photos proving the violation notices were backdated. I showed the police report from Greg's trespass complaint proving Christine had a history of entering private property without authorization. Harold listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked if I had copies for the record. I handed him the binder. He flipped through it and nodded. Christine stood again. She said I was manipulating the evidence. She said the photos were taken on different days and the metadata was wrong. She said the police report was irrelevant because Greg never pressed charges. She said the ledger discrepancies were accounting errors and the management company had failed to reconcile the fund properly. Harold asked if she had proof of the accounting errors. Christine said the management company had refused to give her access to the records after she was suspended. Harold looked at Sharon. Sharon said Christine had full access to the records for 6 years and never raised any concerns about accounting errors until today. Rachel stood and asked to testify. Harold said she could. Rachel walked to the front and pulled out her phone. She played a recording of a phone call between her and Christine from 2 years ago. In the recording, Christine told Rachel that the violation notice had been hand-delivered, and if Rachel did not pay the fine, Christine would file a lien and lock her pool access. Rachel paused the recording and said she had checked her doorbell camera and no one had delivered a notice. She said Christine had threatened her into paying. Harold asked Christine to respond. Christine said she did not remember the call and the recording could have been edited. Rachel pulled out a second phone and played a video of Christine removing Rachel's post from the group chat and replacing it with a correction. The video showed Christine's username and the timestamp. Harold asked Christine to respond. Christine said she had admin privileges and had the authority to moderate the group chat. Harold said that was not the question. He asked if she had deleted Rachel's post and replaced it with false information. Christine did not answer. Harold called for a 10-minute recess. I stepped into the hallway. Paul followed me. He said the hearing was going well, and Christine was digging herself deeper. He said the judge was clearly leaning toward a finding of misconduct. Paul said the next step would be a vote to remove Christine from the board and a referral to the district attorney. He said I should expect the vote to happen today. When we returned to the hearing room, Harold said he had reviewed all the evidence. He said the management company had demonstrated a clear pattern of financial mismanagement and procedural violations. He said Christine had failed to provide any credible evidence to support her claims. He said the board had a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the homeowners, and Christine had violated that duty. He said the hearing would proceed to a board vote on Christine's removal. Sharon called the roll. 3 board members were present. 2 voted to remove Christine immediately. The 3rd abstained. Christine stood and said the vote was invalid because she had not been given proper notice. Harold said the bylaws allowed for emergency removal with a majority vote, and proper notice had been provided 72 hours in advance. Christine said she would appeal. Harold said she had the right to appeal, but the removal was effective immediately. Christine grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. I was standing near the exit. She stopped in front of me. "You think this is over?" she said. "I still have friends on this board. I will be back." I did not say anything. I just stepped aside and let her leave. The room was silent. Harold addressed the homeowners. He said the board was required to implement new transparency measures within 30 days. He said all financial records would be audited by an independent firm. He said the HOA must publish standards and timelines to all homeowners to prevent future abuses. He said any homeowner who had paid a disputed fee in the last 3 years could file for a refund. He said the management company would set up a hotline for claims. I walked out of the courthouse annex feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Luis and Rachel followed me to the parking lot. Rachel said she could not believe Christine had tried to lie her way through the hearing. Luis said Christine had been running that scam for so long she thought she was untouchable. I said the funny thing was, Christine quoted the wrong covenant section when she tried to justify the overrun charge. I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat. Someone had posted a screenshot of the covenant. The section Christine quoted was about lawn maintenance schedules, not vendor billing. The actual vendor billing section required written homeowner approval for any charge over $50. Christine had violated the rule she claimed to enforce. That was the funny karma beat. Karen quotes minutes, and the actual minutes contradict her. The next day, Sharon sent an email to the entire HOA. The email said Christine Jackson had been removed from the board effective immediately. The email said the management company had referred the case to the Bangor Police Department for criminal investigation. The email said all disputed fees issued by Christine in the last 3 years would be refunded within 30 days. The email said a special election would be held in 60 days to fill the vacant board seat. The email said the new board would implement mandatory financial audits and publish all meeting minutes and financial records on the HOA website. I got my refund check 2 weeks later. $300 for the fake overrun charge. Rachel got her refund the same day. $250. Ed never got his refund because he had moved, but Luis tracked him down through Facebook and told him to file a claim. Ed filed and got his money back a month later. Christine's group post gets removed and replaced with a correction. The correction was posted by Sharon. It said Christine had been found guilty of financial mismanagement and procedural violations. It said the board had voted to remove her. It said homeowners with concerns could contact the management company directly. The post stayed up for a week, then Sandra archived it so new members would not see it first thing when they joined the group chat. The police investigation took 3 months. In the end, Christine was charged with theft by deception and filing false reports. She pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 2 years probation and ordered to pay restitution of $30,000. The restitution went into the HOA amenities fund. The fund was audited and rebuilt. The new board voted to hire a certified accountant to manage the finances. No single person would have unilateral access to the fund again. The special election happened on schedule. 3 candidates ran for the vacant board seat. One of them was Rachel. She won by a landslide. Rachel's first act as a board member was to propose a new rule requiring all violation notices to be photographed and timestamped with GPS metadata. The rule passed unanimously. The second act was to require all vendor invoices to be posted in the group chat for homeowner review before payment. That rule also passed. Rachel said she wanted to make sure no one could run the same scam Christine had run. I refinanced my house 2 months after the hearing. The underwriter pulled my HOA certificate and found no liens, no pending violations, and no outstanding fees. The refinance closed in 3 weeks. I saved $200 a month on my mortgage payment. It felt like a small win after everything, but it was enough. Luis got promoted at work. He said the management company had been so impressed with his help during the investigation that they offered him a regional manager position. He took it. Now he oversees 5 HOA accounts, including Meadowbrook Landing. He said he would never let another Christine happen on his watch. Sandra kept her job as the clubhouse coordinator. She also got a raise. The new board voted to increase her pay and expand her duties to include records management. Sandra said she felt like she finally had a voice after years of being silenced by Christine. The neighborhood group chat stayed active. People posted about upcoming events, maintenance issues, and neighborhood news. But the tone changed. There was less fear, less walking on eggshells. People felt like they could speak up without being threatened. The chat became what it was supposed to be. A place for neighbors to connect. I still see Christine sometimes. She lives 3 streets over. We do not talk. She drives past my house and does not look. I do not look either. The grudge is over. The case is closed. The justice was served. The whole experience taught me something. HOAs are only as good as the people running them. If you let one person control the records, the money, and the narrative, you are asking for trouble. Transparency is not optional. Accountability is not optional. And if you see a pattern, do not ignore it. Dig. Ask questions. Get proof. Because the paper trail never lies. I still have the binder. It sits on a shelf in my garage. Every once in a while, I pull it out and flip through the tabs. The ledger, the police report, the metadata analysis, the emails, the covenant sections. It reminds me that fighting back is worth it, even when it feels impossible. Even when the person in power has all the leverage. Even when you are standing alone in your driveway with a tow truck idling at the curb. You can win. You just have to be patient. And you have to trust the evidence. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where the paper trail wins. I will talk to you again soon.